I've been doing field inspection work for about 12 years now. Most of what I handle is utility related, checking lines and damage reports. It usually means hiking into areas most people don't really go into unless they have a reason. It's almost always solo work. I actually prefer it that way, or at least I used to. This happened about 3 years ago in northern Montana. I had to park off an old service road and hike in a few miles. Nothing unusual about that. I logged my route. I set up a small camp near a tree line where the ground was mostly flat. The weather wasn't great. Cold, light snow. The first day was completely normal. I made it back to camp before dark. No issues. Nothing felt off. The second day is when it changed. It had snowed overnight, leaving a fresh layer over everything, making the woods feel quieter than usual. I broke camp later than I should have. I didn't sleep well. I debated leaving early, but there was one more section to finish. It wasn't far, maybe a mile past where I had stopped. So I went. That was the mistake. The terrain was uneven, hidden roots everywhere. I was moving slow, but my foot came down on something slick under the snow. My leg shot forward, and I went down hard. I tried to stand up right away, but when I put weight on my ankle, I knew something was wrong. Not broken, but bad. When you're alone, your brain immediately starts running through worst-case scenarios. I decided I was done. Just get back to camp. The walk was slow. Every step felt uneven. After 10 minutes, I noticed something ahead of me on the trail. Footprints. They weren't mine. What stood out was how fresh they looked. No snow had filled them in yet. Whoever made them couldn't have been too far ahead. Another person meant I wasn't alone, so I kept moving. The woods were quiet, almost too quiet. Then I heard something behind me, just a single crunch. I turned around. Nothing. A couple minutes later, I heard it again. Footsteps. Slow, not rushing. I stopped. The sound stopped too. I remember telling myself it was probably just an animal. Something moving through the brush, stopping when I stopped. Then the footsteps came back. Same distance, same pace. I turned again. Still nothing. That's when it stopped feeling normal. I called out once, just a simple hey. No response. I kept moving because standing there didn't feel like an option. I heard something off to my left. It was metallic. Faint, but clear. That made me look down at those footprints again. Then I saw another set of footprints, off to my left, running through the trees, parallel to where I was walking. Whoever had been ahead of me wasn't ahead anymore. They were walking alongside me. I didn't call out again. I just moved. I told myself if I could get back to camp, I'd be fine. I didn't hear footsteps after that. Somehow, that made it worse. When I stepped out of the tent, he was already there, standing just inside the trees, watching me. I told him I didn't want any trouble. He didn't move. Then he said, "You stopped where you weren't supposed to." And then he turned and walked away. I didn't stay long after that. I've worked as a backcountry guide in Colorado for about 7 years now. Most of what I do is taking small groups out on multi-day trips. Hiking, snowshoeing, sometimes winter camping, depending on the season. It's the kind of work where you either respect the environment or it teaches you very quickly why you should. I don't scare easily out there. At least, I didn't think I did. This happened about 2 winters ago. It wasn't a guided trip. I was out with someone I knew pretty well at the time. His name was Eric. 2 nights. 1 remote cabin stop in between. Then back out the same way we came. Weather looked stable. No storm warnings. The first day went exactly how you'd expect. Cold, but manageable. We reached the cabin area just before sunset and settled in for the night. The second morning is when things went wrong. I woke up and knew immediately something had changed. The wind was the first thing. It was loud enough that I could hear it pushing against the walls of the cabin. snow hitting the outside in bursts. Visibility was almost gone. We stepped outside for a minute just to assess it, and within seconds, it was obvious we were dealing with a full storm. We should have stayed. We had enough supplies, enough warmth, enough time, but instead, we decided to move. The plan was to leave early, push through, and get back before conditions became completely unmanageable. It didn't take long for that decision to fall apart. 1 second, he was moving forward normally. The next, he was on the ground. The snow had covered a drop we couldn't see. Enough that when he landed, something went very wrong with his leg. I pulled out my satellite phone and tried getting a signal. It took a few attempts, but I managed to send something out. Coordinates, situation. I'd leave him with everything we had, and I'd move. Get back to the cabin. Use the emergency radio. Get help. I left him there. That's something I don't think you ever really get used to. Walking away from someone in a situation like that. After about 40 minutes, something started to feel off. The terrain didn't match what I remembered. Landmarks weren't lining up. Then I saw smoke. Off to my left. It wasn't thick. Just enough to notice against the gray. I saw the cabin. It wasn't the one we had stayed in. This one was smaller, older. One side partially buried in snow. I went straight to the door and knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing, so I tried the handle. It wasn't locked. Inside, it was warm. There was a fire going in a small stove, a bedroll on the floor, a pot sitting near the heat. It looked like someone had been there very recently, like minutes. I called out. Nothing. Then I noticed something on a shelf along the wall. Binoculars, next to a folded map, and a notebook. I unfolded the map first. It was a trail map of that entire area, and parts of it were circled. Specific sections. 2 of them. I recognized immediately. They were the exact cabins we had used on previous trips. There were dates written next to them. Then I opened the notebook. The entries weren't normal notes. They were descriptions. People, clothing, movement, direction, times. I remember a line that mentioned 2 individuals traveling together. That was enough. I didn't keep reading. That's when I heard it. A sound, a scream. It came from below me, under the floor, directly underneath, continuous, desperate, like someone had been doing it for a long time. I didn't think. I just moved. I ran out of that cabin, got back on my route, and didn't look back once. At some point, I reached the actual cabin we had stayed in. The emergency radio worked. Help eventually came. Eric survived. Barely. I told everything about the cabin. The map, the notebook, the screaming. They told me they couldn't find anything. No structure, no smoke, no signs of anything matching what I described. Sometimes I think about the timing. If I had reached that cabin earlier, I don't think I would have heard screaming. I think I would have been the reason for it. When I was a senior in high school, there was this girl I couldn't really figure out. Her name was Lauren. I wouldn't say she was popular, but she wasn't invisible either. People knew who she was. They just didn't know what to do with her. She didn't talk much, didn't go out of her way to be friendly, and she had this way of looking at people. It made you feel like she was thinking something she wasn't saying. Most people thought she was weird. I didn't. I thought she was interesting. I had a couple classes with her, and we never really talked directly, but there were these small moments, like catching eye contact, or her noticing something I said in class when nobody else reacted. It felt like she was aware of me in a way others weren't. We ended up talking for the first time by accident. I was walking out of school with a friend when she passed by us. My friend made a joke about me being quiet, and I said I just didn't feel like talking. She stopped, turned, and asked if that was true. She smirked, like she already knew the answer, and then she just said we should hang out sometime. Direct, no explanation. Later that night, She texted me. I didn't even remember giving her my number. Her messages were short. No emojis. No extra words. A few days later, she suggested we go for a hike. She picked the place. She picked the time. I just said yes. The day we went, she picked me up. The drive was quiet. She had music playing, something I didn't recognize, and she didn't fill the silence. We pulled into a small parking area near the trailhead. She didn't hesitate. She just got out and started walking. I followed. The first part of the trail was normal. Wide path, clear direction. She asked about school, but it felt like she knew the answers already. After 20 minutes, the trail narrowed. Trees got denser, less light. At a fork, she pointed left immediately. I asked if she'd been here. She said no, but her voice didn't match the certainty. We took the left path. It was overgrown, less clear. She told me to go ahead. I walked for a minute before I realized I couldn't hear her footsteps anymore. I stopped, turned around. She wasn't there. I called her name. No response. I walked back to the fork. She wasn't there either. That's when it stopped feeling normal. I checked the other path, the right side. It was barely even a trail. I kept calling her name as I walked, but it felt pointless. I heard a branch snapping to my left. I saw movement behind a tree. I thought it was her, messing with me. I walked toward it. I stepped around the tree. It wasn't her. It was a man. He was standing there, just watching me. Not surprised, just watching. I stepped back and said I was looking for my friend. He didn't respond. He started walking toward me. Then I saw someone else. Another man, holding something in his hand. That's when I ran. I didn't think about direction. I just moved. The first man grabbed at my leg, and I fell. I managed to kick free and get back up. After that, I just kept running. Branches, trees, uneven ground, none of it mattered. I ran until I hit the main trail again, then kept going to the parking area. Her car was still there. That made it worse. I didn't know if those guys had her. I called her phone over and over. No answer. I was about to call the police when I saw her, walking out of the trees, calm, completely normal, like nothing had happened. I started explaining everything. She didn't react, just listened. Then she said she thought I had gone ahead and was trying to catch up. That didn't make sense. I had walked back to the fork. There was no way I would have missed her. We left. The entire drive, I thought about the timing. How she picked the trail, the direction, and told me to go ahead. And how those two men were exactly where she led me. We never spoke again. I didn't contact her, and she never reached out. There are only two explanations. Either it was a coincidence, or I was never supposed to make it back to the trail. And the only part I still don't understand is why she let me go first.